Good evening, students. We'll continue with chapter 16, that is management of natural resources. So, last time we talked about the people participation for the conservation of forests. Today we'll be talking about how these forests are getting damaged nowadays. Now, I told you that the government has declared certain areas as national parks in which no disturbance should be done to the animals which live in the national parks. But in spite of that, we are making rest houses in the national parks for tourists. Now, the activity of these tourists, they damage the ecology of the forest as well as cause the pollution. So, their activity disturb the natural environment. Second thing is that overgrazing of the domestic animals. Okay. When the domestic animal, they are been overgrazed, then for the herbivorous animals, herbs are not there. As a result, the number of the herbivorous animals that decreases. When this number of herbivorous animals decreases, the upper trophic levels, that means the carnivorous animals, they also get disturbed. So the overgrazing of the domestic animal, which in turns reduce the number of herbivorous animals, and ultimately the upper trophic levels, they get disturbed. That is another reason the forest they are getting damaged. Now the tourists, when they visit the national parks, etc., they throw non-biodegradable plastic waste in the national parks or there in the national parks, as a result of which the ecosystem of that particular national park, it gets polluted. So these are the things by which we are polluting the forest, or we are destroying, we are damaging the forest. We should conserve the forest. Why we should conserve the forest? We get so many things from the forest, like vegetables, fruits, fodder, grass, medicine, resin, caoutchouc, gums, etc. In addition to this, so many other things are there which we are getting from the forest. So if we don't conserve the forest, then we won't be getting these things. Second thing is, these forests they prevent the soil erosion, they prevent the floods and the landslides, and maintain the fertility of the soil. These forests, they are the habitat for the wild animals, and they are very rich in biodiversity. Any countries whose biodiversity is high, that is economically very fit country. Now these forests maintain the carbon dioxide and oxygen balance, because these trees, they take up the carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, and in return they release the oxygen. As you know that during photosynthesis, the carbon dioxide is taken in by the plants and the oxygen is released. So these forests, they maintain the carbon dioxide oxygen balance in the atmosphere. They regulate the earth temperature and the rainfall. So because of these reasons, we must conserve the forests. Now how to conserve the forest? To reduce the indiscriminate falling of the trees for timber. We should use the timber, we should cut the timber, but not indiscriminately. Forest ecosystem must be protected from the commercial exploitation, like excessive fuel and the fodder should not be taken or should not be allowed. Hunting should not be allowed in the forest, because in the forest the wildlife, that has to be protected. Replantation of the trees should be done wherever possible, especially in especially those trees of local species. Okay, and these local species के जो trees हैं वो suitable land में, जहाँ भी land हो सकती है वहाँ पे we should replant the trees. Monitoring of the scientific research and spreading the awareness. This is very important, that we must spread the awareness for the conservation of the forest, okay, through education. So these are the points. What do we get from the forest? Why should we conserve the trees? and the how should we conserve the forest. Now we'll talk about the last part of this chapter, that is coal and petroleum. This coal and petroleum, which are known as the fossil fuels, these are the important source of energy. Now coal जो है, it is combustible organic fuel and is present inside the earth. It is used in thermal power plants, steam engines, etc. Whereas the petroleum is a liquid. It is also naturally occurring and is found in large quantity below the earth's surface. Now from the petroleum we get diesel, petrol, kerosene, LPG, which is used in the vehicles, used in the ships, aircrafts, and the cooking, etc. These coal and the petroleum, they are formed from the biomass millions of years ago. That means petroleum or coal को हम produce नहीं कर सकते in the factories. They are produced naturally and it takes millions of years for their production. So they will get exhausted in the near future. जिस rate से presently we are using these coal and the petroleum, an estimate has been made in which 40 years तक, after 40 years this petroleum they will get exhausted, and after 200 years this coal will get exhausted if we keep consuming this coal and petroleum product at the present rate. Now further excessive use of this coal and petroleum, it pollutes the environment, because when this coal and petroleum they are burnt, okay, then they produce carbon dioxide and water, the oxides of nitrogen and oxide of sulfur in the air. All these carbon dioxide, oxide of nitrogen, oxide of sulfur, they are polluting the environment. And when this petroleum, etc., they are burned in insufficient oxygen supply, then instead of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide is produced, which is again a poisonous gas. Okay, now from this gas, you know that carbon dioxide you have a greenhouse gas, and this greenhouse gas, it leads to the global warming, that is the temperature of the globe that is increased. So we must use these coal and petroleum judiciously. Now how we can conserve this fossil fuel? Very simple steps are there, but we must take care of these steps. We don't bother about these steps. One is switching off the lights, fans, TV and the other electric appliances if they are not in a use. We must save the electricity by using efficient electric appliances. Instead of using the lift, wherever and whenever possible, we should use the staircases. We must use public transport system. This public transport system should be improved so that everybody can use this public transport system rather than using the personal vehicle. क्योंकि आजकल the people they use the personal vehicle rather than using the public transport system. They think that public transport system is not very convenient. So इसमें improvement लाने की ज़रूरत है. Like winter में हम लोग heater लगा देते हैं. So instead of heater, if we can wear an extra woolen, that can be worn. So by doing this small thing, we can conserve the electricity. So and ultimately we can conserve the exhaustible natural resources which may not last long. With this, chapter number 16 gets completed. Thank you, students. Take care of yourself.